So I want you to imagine a glossy magazine cover just sitting right there on your coffee table.
Okay, setting the scene. I like it.
Right. And on one side of this page, you have this list. And it's tracking the richest people in the history of human civilization.
Oh, yeah. The trillionaires.
Exactly. The people who practically own the literal silicon that runs our modern world. And right next to that, you have this highly dense, almost impenetrable technical jargon about microprocessing software.
Which is, a really weird mix for a coffee table magazine.
It is. And then on the other side of the cover, there's this image. It's an ultra-sleek, entirely autonomous robot designed to, sweep the floors so you don't get your pristine white pants dirty.
Yeah, that image is just wild.
And floating above all of this, screaming across the very top of the page in these massive, totally unavoidable letters, is a single, deeply emotional question.
Just where is the love?
Yes. Where is the love? Right there in all caps. And so today we are doing a deep dive into the April 2026 issue of AI.MAG.
It is just a striking visual and honestly an incredibly jarring mix of concepts to put on a single piece of paper.
Oh, completely jarring.
But, that friction, that weird juxtaposition is exactly why we are looking at it today.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're sort of embarking on a slightly different kind of mission than we normally do.
Yeah, we're not just breaking down, a single research paper this time.
No, not at all. Or, walking through a timeline of tech news. We are treating this physical magazine like it's, an archaeological artifact.
Which is funny because it's from, right now, April 2026.
Exactly. But we want to analyze its table of contents, its striking cover imagery, and the incredibly provocative manifesto that opens the issue.
Right, we want to extract the zeitgeist.
Yes, that prevailing cultural and technological mood of the artificial intelligence landscape in the spring of 2026.
And, print media does something really unique here, especially in an era that's entirely dominated by these instantaneous, ephemeral digital feeds.
Everything just scrolls away, usually.
Exactly. But print acts as amber. It traps the culture of a specific moment in time.
I love that analogy, amber.
Yeah, because by examining what these editors chose to elevate to the cover, we get this highly curated, almost microscopic snapshot. We see what society deemed most important or most lucrative or perhaps most threatening at that exact second.
And to set the scene for you listening, you really have to imagine the physical weight of this object.
Oh yeah, it's not flimsy.
No, it's a premium European publication. It's priced at 11.30 Swiss francs or 9.60 euros.
So definitely not some throwaway tabloid you grab at the supermarket checkout.
Right. It self-describes as an AI tech magazine for business and culture. It has that heavy, expensive paper stock. The design is just immaculate.
Which makes that overarching headline, the "Where is the love?" even more fascinating, I think.
Totally.
Because this deep dive isn't going to be just a rundown of the latest algorithms. What you have sitting in your hands with this magazine represents a really critical inflection point.
An inflection point. Say more about that.
Well, it's showing us a society that is actively and perhaps desperately trying to reconcile the cold, utterly calculating nature of AI hardware with, raw human emotion.
And messy cultural expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The editors of AI.MAG are explicitly pointing out that you cannot talk about the silicon architecture anymore without talking about the soul of the people using it.
The silicon in the soul. I want to keep that phrase in mind as we navigate this, because before we even look at the specific technologies or the billionaires featured inside, we really have to understand the philosophical lens here.
Yeah, the worldview of this specific April 2026 issue.
Right, because right inside the cover, acting as this gateway to the rest of the magazine, there is this manifesto.
Oh, the manifesto is something else.
It really is. I'm going to read the prominent quote they feature because it completely frames the whole technological discussion for the rest of the issue.
Go for it.
It says, "There is a quiet and broadly accepted cynicism that has become the default setting of our times, which says, the world belongs to the loud, the ruthless, the shameless, and if one aims to survive, one better becomes."
And it just dramatically cuts off right there.
A literal cliffhanger in a tech editorial.
That's so theatrical.
Yes. And honestly, when I first read that, I had a very specific reaction. It asks what one becomes, right? Do you become more ruthless to survive the modern tech landscape?
That's the implication, yeah.
But here's where I really struggle with this framing, and I want to push back on the editors here just a bit.
Okay, what's your take?
When I read about the world belonging to the loud, the ruthless, the shameless, My mind instantly goes to the tech culture of the early 2020s.
Oh, sure. The whole move fast and break things era.
Exactly, that Silicon Valley mantra, the era of blitzscaling where you disrupt an entire industry at all costs, ignore the collateral damage, and, apologize to the regulators later.
Yeah, ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Right. So if the architecture of the internet was built by the ruthless, why is a self-proclaimed elite AI tech magazine suddenly asking, where is the love?
That is the big question.
Like, is this genuine philosophical soul-searching from the tech industry? Or is this just a really clever, deeply cynical marketing rebrand for a ruthless business model?
The marketing angle.
Yeah, like, hey, we're ingesting all your personal data to train our models, but we're doing it with love.
I mean, that is the essential tension you have to keep in mind, and it is a completely valid skepticism. I really get where you're coming from.
Right. It feels a little convenient.
It does. I would argue, though, that this quote is actually acknowledging a profound, almost bone-deep cultural exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
Yeah. Think about what you, listening right now, have been subjected to over the last decade.
It's been a lot.
It has been a relentless barrage of exactly that loud and shameless technological disruption. The constant algorithm changes designed purely to hijack human attention.
Oh, the doom scrolling.
Exactly. And the erosion of digital privacy, the looming threat of automation over white-collar work. I mean, the public is simply exhausted by the friction of it all.
We have disruption fatigue.
Precisely. Disruption fatigue. And the editors of AI.MAG are reading the room here.
So you think they're being sincere?
I think they are likely positioning their publication and perhaps trying to manifest a new wave of AI development as the antidote to this cynicism.
Okay, that makes sense.
They're asking if survival in this new era of artificial intelligence actually requires us to double down on that ruthlessness, or, if the alternative is to demand a more thoughtful, intentionally loving integration of technology into our daily lives.
So they're challenging the status quo.
Right. They're questioning the fundamental premise that tech monopolies have to be inherently hostile to the human spirit.
But see, if they're questioning the ruthless nature of the world, you can't just talk about philosophy.
No, you definitely can't.
You have to look at the mechanics of power. If we want to see who is actually winning this ruthless game they describe, we have to follow the money.
Always follow the money.
And that takes us directly to the business and hardware features listed on this cover. The very first business feature they highlight is the inclusion of the Huron Index 2026.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Now, for anyone listening who doesn't, track global financial indices over their morning coffee, the Huron Index is essentially a massive global wealth tracker.
Yeah, it's the ledger of the ultra-wealthy.
Right. It documents who holds the capital on a massive scale.
And what you need to take away from this is the sheer fact that a global wealth index is a cover feature on an AI magazine.
Yeah, that stood out to me.
Because it signifies how completely and totally the artificial intelligence sector has swallowed the global markets by 2026.
It's just devoured everything else.
Completely. Think about the historical progression of global wealth. If you look at these types of lists, say, 50 years ago, you'd see the names of oil barons and rail tycoons.
Right, the industrialists.
Yeah. And 20 years ago, it was real estate magnates and retail giants. Even 10 years ago, it was social media founders.
The platform kings.
Exactly. Now, in 2026, to track global wealth is simply to track AI.
It's tracking a completely new kind of resource extraction, isn't it?
It really is. But it's not just tracking the charismatic founders of AI software companies, which is what we used to see.
Who else is it tracking?
It is tracking the data brokers and, crucially, the compute monopolists.
The compute monopolists, the people who own the hardware.
Yes, the people and entities who own the physical, tangible infrastructure that makes these massive neural networks even possible. Because AI is not magic.
Right, it feels like magic, but it's not.
It's math. It's math running on physical machines. And the people who own the machines hold the wealth.
Which brings us to the bedrock of all this. We pivot from the wealth generated on the Huron Index straight down into the deeply technical hardware features on the cover.
And they get very technical.
They really do. The cover highlights hardware innovation and very specifically an article on Goopak's GPU drivers.
Yeah.
Now, I want to unpack this because on the surface, putting GPU drivers on a magazine cover next to a philosophical plea for love sounds completely absurd.
It sounds like an IT maintenance manual just sort of snuck its way onto a lifestyle magazine.
Right. But from what I understand about the state of AI infrastructure, the entire global boom, these trillion-dollar valuations we just talked about, is entirely bottlenecked at this microscopic level.
It is. The whole industry rests on it.
So if building a massive AI model is like trying to map the entire human brain, the physical GPU, the graphics processing unit, isn't the brain itself.
No, it's not.
It's more like the massive network of blood vessels delivering oxygen to it. And the driver, the software that runs that hardware, is the chemical signal deciding exactly which microscopic vein gets the blood and exactly when.
That's a great way to think about it.
And if that signal is inefficient by even a millisecond, the whole brain starves.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Let's break down the mechanics for a second, though, to understand why this actually matters culturally.
Okay, good.
A traditional computer processor, a CPU, is like a single, incredibly brilliant mathematician.
Okay, a solitary genius.
Right. If you give that mathematician a really complex calculus problem, they will solve it very quickly.
Makes sense.
But if you give that single mathematician 10,000 simple arithmetic problems, they will still have to solve them one by one. It takes time.
Because there's only one of them.
Exactly. Now, a GPU, on the other hand, is not one brilliant mathematician. It is an army of 10,000 elementary school students.
Okay, I love this analogy. Go on.
So they aren't doing complex calculus,
Like they're kids.
They're doing basic addition and multiplication. But because there are 10,000 of them, they can do 10,000 problems simultaneously. This is called parallel processing. And modern artificial intelligence, specifically the deep learning and neural networks that power everything from chatbots to image generators, is essentially just millions and millions of simple matrix multiplications happening all at once.
So the AI industry realized they didn't actually need the solitary genius CPU anymore. They needed the army of elementary schoolers in the GPU.
Exactly. But here is where the GUPAC's GPU drivers come in. You have this massive army of 10,000 workers inside the chip. How do you coordinate them?
Right, how do you keep them from running into each other?
How do you feed them data so that no one is sitting idle? How do you retrieve their answers? The driver is the software translator between the operating system and the physical silicon of the GPU.
It's the management layer.
It is the molecular metallurgy of the system. If a company like GUPAC's engineers a driver that optimizes that data flow by even a fraction of a nanosecond, the compounding effect across a massive data center is staggering.
You're talking about saving actual time and electricity.
Massive amounts of it. The efficiency of a GPU driver literally determines how much electricity a hyperscale data center consumes.
Which is a huge issue right now.
Huge. That consumption impacts local power grids. It impacts global energy markets. It dictates the geopolitics of where these data centers can even be physically built.
Because you literally can't plug them in just anywhere.
No, you can't. So by placing something hyper niche like GUPAC's GPU drivers on the cover next to a debate about human cynicism, the editors are making a profound statement to you, the reader.
They're tying the philosophy to the hardware.
Yes. They're saying that in 2026, you cannot possibly understand the culture of AI or the obscene wealth of the Huron Index without understanding the microscopic, deeply technical mechanisms that make it run. The architecture dictates the culture.
Okay, so we have the billionaires hoarding the compute power, and we have these highly optimized drivers pushing the silicon to its absolute physical limits. But all that raw computational power in a server farm out in the desert is useless to you and me if it just sits there waiting for a human to type a prompt into a text box.
Exactly. It needs an interface.
How does that compute break out of the server room and actually do things in the real world? And that brings us to the next massive paradigm shift featured on the cover, which is agentic AI.
Yes. This is where the theoretical rubber really meets the road.
And honestly, I read the pieces on agentic AI, and part of me feels like I'm looking at vaporware.
Really?
How so? Well, every tech company for the last 5 years has promised an AI that will, do my taxes and run my business, but I still have chatbots that hallucinate completely fake information when I ask for a simple historical timeline.
Sure, the hallucinations are a known issue.
So what is the actual mechanical leap in logic that gets us from a text generator to an autonomous agent?
Well, it is a fundamental shift in the architecture of how the model processes a prompt.
Okay, break that down for me.
The AI you're used to, the standard large language model, is what we call static compute. It is a reactive text prediction engine.
Reactive.
Yes. You ask it a question, it calculates the most mathematically probable sequence of words to answer you. It outputs the text, and then it stops.
It just shuts down.
It has no memory of what it just did, unless you specifically remind it. It is entirely dependent on the user driving the interaction forward, step by step.
Right, I have to hold its hand the whole way.
Exactly. Agentic AI, however, employs a completely different mechanism. It's often referred to as a thought-action-observation loop.
Thought-action-observation, okay.
Let's put you, the listener, in a scenario to make this concrete. Say you want to go to the Glitch Festival in Warsaw.
Oh, I definitely want to go to that.
Right. So if you tell a traditional chatbot, book me a flight to Warsaw, it will generate a very polite paragraph saying, here are some popular airlines that fly to Warsaw. You should go to their websites and book a ticket.
It just generates text.
Which is completely useless if you actually want the task done.
Yeah, I still have to do all the work.
Right. But if you give that same overarching goal to an agentic AI, it doesn't just generate a text response for you to read. It generates an internal thought.
An internal thought.
Yes. The thought might be, to book a flight, I first need to check the user's calendar for dates, then access a flight API to find options.
Oh, so it makes a plan.
Exactly. Then it executes an action. It literally pings your calendar software. Then, crucially, it observes the result.
Wait, it reads its own output?
Yes. It observes that your calendar is clear, so then it generates the next thought. Calendar is clear, now I will ping the airline API. It executes that action.
Okay, I see.
Now let's say the airline API has changed its security protocols and rejects the agent's request.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. A traditional automated script would simply crash and give you an error message. But an agentic AI observes the failure.
It sees that it failed?
Yes, and it generates a new thought. The API rejected the request. The protocol must have changed. I should search the internet for the updated API documentation, rewrite my request, and try again.
Wow.
It reasons its way around the obstacle without needing you to prompt it again. It possesses a localized form of autonomy and persistence. It doesn't just talk, it acts, it fails, it adjusts, and it executes.
Okay, that clarifies the mechanism beautifully. It's not just a parrot anymore, it's a worker.
Exactly.
And that leap from passive text to active agency leads us directly to the visual imagery the magazine uses to represent this, and it is just incredibly striking.
The white pants image.
Yes, let me put this picture for you listening. The photograph that anchors these themes shows a person, framed only from the knees down.
Just the legs.
Right. And they are wearing these pristine, wide-leg white pants and incredibly sharp, polished black shoes. They are standing on a stark, immaculate white floor.
Very high-end fashion aesthetic.
Totally. And right next to their expensive shoes is this sleek, circular black robot. It has these little sweeping brushes extending from the side.
Like a Roomba, but elevated.
Yeah, it looks like an advanced robotic vacuum, but much more industrial and sophisticated. So you have a dark mechanical disc on a pristine white floor, actively sweeping the area directly around the immaculate human clothing.
The cultural reading of this image is just profound, especially when you place it under the banner of agentic AI.
I thought so too.
Notice what the editors deliberately chose not to show here. For decades, the media representation of autonomous AI has been like a glowing blue brain, or terrifying humanoid Terminator with red eyes.
Or that omniscient digital eye on a screen like HAL 9000.
Exactly, a threat, something that rivals us.
Right, something scary.
But this image is deeply domestic. It is entirely subservient. The stark visual contrast between the human's clean white clothing and the dark robot physically doing the sweeping illustrates a very specific and perhaps comforting vision of the future.
Comforting for who, though?
Well, for the user. It depicts a world where agentic AI handles the literal and figurative dirty work. It manages the logistics, it cleans the floors, it navigates the friction of the physical world.
Leaving the humans completely free.
Leaving them free to wear white pants and remain utterly untouched by the grime of daily maintenance.
See, here's where the philosophical tension snaps back into place for me.
How so?
Think about the juxtaposition of the entire cover. We have this giant headline screaming, "Where is the love?" While simultaneously, the imagery we use to represent our most advanced, autonomous, agentic AI is a machine engineered to clean the dust off our expensive shoes.
Oh, that's a really good point.
I have to push back on the utopian angle of this. If we are giving machines agency, if they can reason and observe and overcome obstacles like you just described, Does that imply a partnership? Are we building digital colleagues?
Or
Based on this image, are we just engineering a highly competent, entirely new class of digital servitude?
that is the uncomfortable truth at the heart of the cynicism the manifesto mentioned earlier.
Right.
When humans say, "Where's the love?" in relation to technology, we have to ask, are we asking the machine to love us? Or are we asking ourselves why we seemingly only build machines to serve our comfort?
It's very one-sided.
The visual language of the white pants and the black sweeping robot speaks to a very persistent human desire for hierarchy.
We want to be at the top. We always want to be at the top.
Always. We want the technology to be brilliant. We want it to be smart enough to act autonomously and solve complex problems without our input. But we simultaneously demand that it remains subservient enough that we never have to get our hands dirty.
We want a genius intellect that is perfectly content to sweep the floorboards.
Exactly. And that is a very complicated, almost contradictory definition of love or partnership. It is inherently paternalistic.
We want a supercomputer that doesn't mind acting like a butler.
Basically, yeah.
Which is a fascinating transition, because if we want to look at how we view the intellect of these machines, we have to look at the human intellect that built them.
Right, the architects.
The magazine pivots from the hardware and the robots to the humans they have chosen to highlight on the cover. And it is a wildly disparate mix of people.
It's quite a lineup.
We have deep historical academic rigor sitting right next to mainstream stadium-filling celebrity culture.
The curation here is brilliant because it reveals the dual nature of how AI exists in society in 2026.
So, buried a bit further down the cover list, almost as an anchor of legitimacy, we have an interview with Jack Dongara.
Jack Dongara.
Yes.
Now, if you aren't deep in the weeds of computer science history, that name might not mean much to you. But Jack Dongara is an absolute titan.
Oh, he's a legend.
He is a Turing Award winner. He's one of the foundational figures in supercomputing and, crucially, in benchmarking.
And we really need to unpack why benchmarking is so vital here, because it connects directly back to the GPU drivers we discussed earlier.
Exactly. My understanding is that he helped create the standards by which we actually measure the fastest computers on Earth. But how did his math from decades ago pave the way for an agentic AI sweeping my floor today? It comes down to establishing a universal metric for computational reality. Decades ago, Dongara was instrumental in developing LinPack.
LinPack?
Yeah, it's a software library for performing numerical linear algebra. More importantly, he helped create the TOP 500 list, which ranks the world's most powerful supercomputers.
Okay, so a leaderboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to get on that list, a computer has to run the LinPack benchmark.
It's basically the standardized test for supercomputers.
Precisely. And the test measures how fast the computer can solve a massive, complex system of linear equations. The metric used is called FLOPS, floating point operations per second.
FLOPS, right.
Now, why does this matter for AI? Because, as we discussed with the elementary schoolers and the GPUs, a modern neural network is fundamentally just a colossal system of linear equations. It is matrix multiplication.
So it all comes back to linear algebra.
It always does. Dongara's work built the ruler. He created the crucible that forced hardware manufacturers to fiercely compete on optimizing linear algebra.
Oh, is it?
The entire hardware architecture that currently runs the AI revolution was forged in the fire of trying to score higher on Jack Dongara's benchmark.
So by putting him on the cover, AI.MAG is showing reverence. They are telling the reader, we respect the multi-decade, deeply mathematical architectural work that allows the modern world to exist. It's a nod to the elders.
It grounds the publication in serious historical science. It prevents it from just being a hype sheet for Silicon Valley startups.
And this is a massive but. Right at the very top of the bulleted list, above Jack Dongara, the first name you see in bold letters on the cover is Will.i.am AI Nation.
Yeah, that's quite the contrast.
Will.i.am, the musician, the frontman of the Black Eyed Peas, the pop culture icon. So as a reader, you have to ask yourself, why on earth do you put a pop star and one of the founding fathers of supercomputing benchmarking on the exact same cover of a serious tech magazine?
It seems crazy at first glance.
Right. What is the connective tissue between a Turing Award winner and a Grammy-winning pop star?
If you want to understand the true zeitgeist of 2026, you have to look at how technology propagates. The connective tissue is the democratization of complex systems.
Okay, unpack that.
AI has officially, irrevocably escaped the laboratory. By 2026, artificial intelligence is no longer just a subject for academic symposiums discussing FLOPS or closed-door boardrooms in Silicon Valley discussing GoopAx drivers.
It's everywhere.
It has become a massive global pop culture phenomenon. The phrase they use on the cover, AI Nation, suggests a borderless, ubiquitous culture that is driven by celebrity influence and public perception just as much as it is driven by mathematical science.
Well, and Will.i.am has historically been very forward-thinking about integrating technology into music and culture. He's always been an early adopter.
Exactly. He represents the translation layer.
The translation layer.
Yeah. If Jack Dongara and the hardware engineers are building the back-end server of the AI revolution, Will.i.am and figures like him are building the user interface for the general public.
The pop star is the UI. I love that.
It's the only way mass adoption happens. Most people will never understand matrix multiplication or parallel processing.
And they don't want to.
They don't need to. They need to understand how the technology makes them feel, how it changes their art, how it alters their daily life.
Right, the practical application.
Will.i.am is taking Jack Dongara's abstract supercomputing concepts, the ones that allow a machine to generate music or generate video, and socializing them for the masses. He is explaining the utility of the math to the public.
And the fact that the editors put them on the same cover proves that a tech magazine for business and culture has to take both ends of that spectrum equally seriously.
You really can't have one without the other anymore.
You literally cannot have the cultural phenomenon of an AI nation without Dongara's foundational math. And Dongara's math wouldn't be reshaping the global economy without cultural evangelists like Will.i.am normalizing it for billions of people.
It is the perfect synthesis of the magazine's subtitle, business and culture.
So, if Will.i.am represents the mainstreaming of AI, the massive stadium-sized pop culture explosion of the technology, the final features on this cover show us what happens when that mainstream tech inevitably trickles down into the underground.
Which is where things always get interesting.
Exactly. When a tool becomes widely available, artists inevitably hack it to see what it can really do. And that fulfills the magazine's promise to explore culture on a deeper level.
Yeah, they highlight a couple of artists specifically.
We have two specific artist features listed, Bryce Weber and Stella Ogg.
Now, what is crucial here is not necessarily knowing the exact portfolio of Bryce Weber or Stella Ogg.
Right, the art itself is almost secondary.
The specific art they create is secondary to the mere fact of their inclusion in this specific context.
Let's unpack that. Why is their presence as AI artists so significant on a cover that also features billionaires and GPU drivers?
Because it signals a fundamental maturation of the medium. Think back, listener, to your early interactions with AI art generators.
Oh, they were rough.
A few years ago, AI image generation was largely viewed as a parlor trick. You typed a silly prompt into a box, you got a slightly distorted image, often with people having 6 or 7 fingers, and you laughed.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Or, conversely, it was viewed purely through the lens of threat. It was seen as a massive, automated copyright theft machine poised to replace human illustrators.
It was either a gimmick or a villain. There was no in between.
Exactly. But by 2026, by featuring specific named individuals as artists who use AI, the publication is making a declaration.
What are they declaring?
They are stating that AI has moved past the gimmick phase. It is now a recognized, legitimate medium of fine art.
Like photography or oil painting.
Yes. It has dedicated practitioners who aren't just typing prompts, but who are deeply exploring the boundaries, the biases, and the latent spaces of these neural networks.
They're pushing the tech.
The AI is no longer viewed just as an automated tool that steals jobs. It is viewed as a canvas that requires a specific kind of human vision to manipulate effectively.
And speaking of manipulating the system and exploring boundaries, that brings us to my absolute favorite bullet point on this entire cover.
I think I know which one you're going to say.
Down at the bottom, there is a feature on the Glitch Festival Warsaw. I just love the phonetic sound of that. The Glitch Festival.
It is, philosophically, the most revealing event they could have possibly chosen to feature in this issue.
It's the ultimate irony. Think about the narrative we've constructed so far.
Yeah, map it out.
You have companies on the Huron Index spending hundreds of billions of dollars to make artificial intelligence utterly flawless. They are pouring fortunes into GoopAx GPU drivers to eliminate every single microsecond of latency.
Pushing for perfection.
They are training agentic AI to seamlessly overcome obstacles so the human never has to experience friction. The entire corporate and technological machine is ruthlessly chasing frictionless perfection.
Right.
And yet, human culture turns around, takes all that perfectly engineered technology, and throws a massive underground festival in Warsaw to celebrate the glitch.
Celebrate the break.
Yes. To celebrate the exact moment the billion-dollar machine breaks, or stutters, or hallucinates, or produces a fatal error.
Why do you think that is? What is the human draw to the error?
I think it's a desperate grab for humanity. I liken it to the massive resurgence of vinyl records we've seen over the years.
Oh, that's an interesting parallel.
We have perfectly lossless digital audio. We can stream mathematically perfect sound waves into our ears anytime we want, yet people spend incredible amounts of money on analog vinyl because they actively crave the physical warmth.
They want the texture.
They crave the pops, the hiss, the slight distortion of the needle on the wax. They crave the imperfections because the imperfection is what makes it feel real.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it cuts right to the heart of the silicon and soul debate.
How so?
Well, if we tie this all the way back to the opening manifesto, the quote about the quiet and broadly accepted cynicism of a world that belongs to the loud, the ruthless, the shameless.
All right, the tech bro ruthlessness.
The corporate tech world is often deeply ruthless in its pursuit of optimization, engagement, and flawless efficiency. The system is designed to be a frictionless god.
And humans don't actually like frictionless gods.
No, we don't. Embracing the glitch, the error, the unpredictable, weird, broken output of a struggling neural network is perhaps the ultimate human rejection of that corporate perfection.
But I have to play devil's advocate here because I can hear people listening thinking this right now.
Bring it on.
Isn't celebrating the glitch just, well, pretentious? Isn't it just an artistic coping mechanism for broken technology?
Like we're just making excuses for bad code.
Exactly. Like putting a broken toilet in a modern art gallery and calling it a masterpiece because you don't actually know how to do real plumbing. If the machine fails, it failed. Why elevate that to high art?
It's not about celebrating failure for the sake of failure. It is about revealing the man behind the curtain.
Okay, explain that.
When a highly advanced AI system glitches, it momentarily drops the illusion of omnipotence. It steps outside its rigid, optimized programming and produces something uniquely absurd or terrifying or strangely beautiful.
It breaks the rules.
The glitch proves that there is still chaos in the system. It proves that the machine is just a machine, built by flawed humans, trained on flawed human data. In a strange way, when the AI glitches, it becomes vulnerable.
Vulnerable. That's a really fascinating word to use for a supercomputer.
It is the only word that fits. And in a world dominated by ultra-efficient agentic AI sweeping our floors and trillionaire monopolists consolidating wealth on the Huron Index, a festival in Warsaw celebrating broken code might be the most profound cultural pushback possible.
It's a form of protest.
The glitch is the rebellion against the ruthless efficiency. It is the place where the machine stops being a perfect servant and accidentally becomes a reflection of our own messy reality.
Wow.
It might be the exact place where you finally find the love that the overarching headline is so desperately searching for.
Wow. Okay, that brings us full circle perfectly. And it is kind of staggering to think about the intellectual ground we have covered today just by examining the surface elements of a single magazine cover.
We didn't even read the articles, and look at what we unearthed.
Right. We started with the philosophical dread of modern tech cynicism laid out in the manifesto. We followed the trail of immense capital through the Huron Index, which forced us to dig into the microscopic physical mechanics of parallel processing and GPU drivers.
From philosophy to silicon.
And then we looked at the domestic reality and maybe the psychological desire for domestic servitude wrapped up in the concept of agentic robots cleaning up after us.
The white pants imagery.
And finally, we saw this incredible, almost chaotic cultural synthesis where supercomputing pioneers, stadium pop stars, and underground glitch artists all share the exact same stage.
And this exercise is exactly why taking the time to deeply analyze our media is so vital for anyone who wants to remain well-informed.
Absolutely.
You don't always need to read a textbook to understand the trajectory of technology. Looking closely at how a cultural publication curates its content reveals society's true priorities, its hidden power structures, and its deepest anxieties.
It tells you what we're actually worried about.
What we were looking at in this April 2026 issue is a world that is desperately trying to balance the ruthless, world-eating mathematical efficiency of technological advancement with the messy, unpredictable, vulnerable, and loving reality of human culture.
It really is that X-ray we talked about at the beginning. Except in this case, the bones of the X-ray are made of etched silicon, and the soft tissue is just human culture desperately trying to grow around it and make sense of it.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is not clean, it is certainly not a binary 0 or 1, but it is endlessly, profoundly fascinating.
It is the muddy waters we all have to navigate moving forward.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into AI.MAG, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought.
Something to take with them.
Yeah. A question to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, as you look at your phone, as you scroll through your feeds, as you interact with the invisible algorithms that shape your daily life.
Right.
If you were handed a blank piece of paper right now, and you had to create a magazine cover that perfectly captured your own personal daily relationship with technology, what would your overarching headline be?
That's a tough one.
Would your cover be dominated by the hardware you rely on to get your work done? Would it focus on the wealth that the platforms are extracting from your attention? Or would you too find yourself looking at the glowing glass screen, searching through the code, asking the machine, where's the love?